Reopening guidance is specific to a moment of time, and it's in conjunction with how the virus activity is being tracked and where we're at, where we're dialing up and where we're dialing it down.
The Iowa Department of Education Return to Learn plans are due tomorrow. Developing them has been an enormous undertaking for education leaders all across the state. Erin, you've been looking into this.
Yeah, and that's putting it mildly, actually. Right. Who we just heard from was Dr. Ann Lebo. She's the director of the Department of Education. She's referencing reopening guidance being specific to a moment in time. So here's how that snapshot looks today. Nearly 29,000 positive cases in Iowa, 712 deaths, and more than 23,000 people who have recovered. With the number of positive cases now starting to trend higher, the return to school is just becoming more complicated.
Britannica, that's it.
Parents all over Iowa have learned just how tough it can be to try to take on the role of classroom teacher.
Maybe we just need to do a Google search.
For some, it came fairly easy. For others, it's been an exercise in frustration.
We should have that flexibility as a school district to keep those kids safe and keep them moving forward in school.
It's a challenging balancing act for education leaders.
Because this is new and people have to think about this differently.
Dr. Ann Lebo says the 327 school districts in the state have flexibility when it comes to developing return to learn plans, but the learning will now be required, and these 7 areas must be addressed.
Before we could get to the point where we're going to say, this is what we're going to do, we're going to have an understanding of what can be done safely with what we have.
And this might provide some insight.
I think with the recent decision to open sports and open some summer learning activities for students gives us the opportunity to look at what school could be with limited populations of students. I think this first experience in the month of June will teach us a lot. I think it will help us guide how we move forward.
Almost all school districts are developing multiple what-if plans. Johnston has 3, one for in-person learning, one for online, and one that blends the two. After months of research and meetings, Des Moines has developed a hybrid.
We're exploring a whole variety of options. None of them right now, frankly, seem very realistic.
Back in May, the superintendent of the state's largest school district told me he was feeling very uncertain about what the fall might look like. Good morning. Especially when it comes to following social distancing guidelines.
You start doing the math on that just in terms of how many students could you safely serve in one classroom, and how many students could you transport on one bus. Those questions become a calculation that just doesn't pan out. It becomes a math problem that is exceedingly difficult to make come out even in the end.
Dr. Lebo agrees and gives these examples. A typical 77-passenger bus could only hold 13 students if everyone has to be 6 feet apart. The average high school class in Des Moines has roughly 25 students in it, but could only hold 10 with social distancing in place.
There's some things we can't change. You can't build more schools by fall. You can't add on additional classrooms by fall. You can't buy that many buses by fall.
Well, maybe take that out of the search bar.
Leaving families around the state wondering what their lives will look like in a few weeks.
Is that all the way in?
So a spokesperson for Des Moines Schools tells me parents are going to be able to choose between a totally online model or that hybrid, combining both distance and in-person learning. It's not exactly clear what that second model might look like, but the district will use masks and distancing, despite the Department of Education not requiring those safety measures. So I guess what we can say at this point, Dan, is stay tuned.
Oh, man. Oh, we will. There is so much to come on this. It sounds like, Erin, you're saying for now at least, kids and families ought to just focus on trying to enjoy this summer, right?
Soak it up.
Easier said than done when you got extreme heat on the way, Ed.
Exactly. It is going to be something to be concerned with. But take care of yourself and enjoy what has been a pretty decent ride here. We haven't had a lot of severe weather, thank goodness. This was a great view tonight. Kids out there playing baseball up at with South Taman, West Marshall at State Center. Michelle Mooney Wilson.